accounting errors and the suspense account. I'll start by saying this, that in the process of preparing the ledger accounts, those T accounts, in the process of preparing the ledger accounts, as an accountant, you can make some errors. And what we know is that the balances of the ledger accounts, they are normally used in preparing a trial balance. If you have done your ledger accounts, those T accounts, if you have done the T accounts, you have balanced them. The balances in these accounts, we normally come here and use them in preparing the trial balance. And the trial balance, we know, has got the format of maybe the serial number, the error number 1, all the way to the last one. You have the details, which is now the accounts that will be affected. We have the debit and we have the credit. That is how our trial balance looks like. If these ledger accounts were properly prepared, they were correctly balanced, and therefore you have brought the correct balances to the trial balance. Remember, for example, if you had an account called cash, here you'll come here, sorry, this is the trial balance. This is not actually the trial. The trial balance will have simply the accounts. This is you have simply the accounts, the debit and the credit balance. So if here you had cash, maybe here you have John, a creditor. Here maybe you had capital. Here maybe you had what? You had purchases. You have other accounts. You have, for example, the sales, all that. So these accounts, you'll find that they are going to be recorded here. You'll come here and have the cash, you record the balance. You will have the capital, record the balance in the capital. You have the John, who is actually a creditor, you record the balance. We have the sales here, the sales balance, and probably the purchases. If all was well prepared, if those ledger accounts, they were prepared correctly, following the double entry rule, then you'll find that your trial balance will balance. So for example, cash, any asset will have a debit balance, maybe it is 50,000. Maybe capital is normally credited, maybe it is 150,000. John, who is a creditor is a liability, will be on the credit side, maybe it is 30,000. Then maybe you have sales, we can put sales, maybe it was 20,000. This is going to be what? 200,000. Let's say this one is 150,000. Purchases is normally captured on the debit. So if everything is well, you find that this side is going to have a total of 200,000. This side has got a total of 200,000. So that is how a trial balance should be. The totals of the debit and the totals of the credit should agree. The totals of the debit and the totals of the credit should be equal. And when you have something like this, where the totals of the debit and the totals of the credit are equal, then it simply means that your ledger accounts were well prepared, and the balances that you took to the trial balance, they were also correct. But now, when we talk about accounting errors, there are some errors that you can commit in your ledger accounts. In the process of preparing and balancing your ledger accounts, we have those errors that you can make, but still your trial balance will balance. We have those errors. So the moment your trial balance has balanced, you should not celebrate too much that everything is okay. We have a possibility that you can make some errors, and those errors will not be detected in the trial balance. So generally, we can say that accounting errors are classified into two. So accounting errors are classified into two. Accounting errors are classified into two. The first category of accounting errors is errors which are not detected or they don't affect the trial balance totals. The errors which do not affect the trial balance or they are not detected using the trial balance totals. So even if you have made those errors, your trial balance will still balance, but in some cases or in most cases with a different total amount. So that is the first one I want us to deal with. Those errors which you can make, but still your trial balance will balance, either with the correct balance or with the wrong balance, but at the end of the day, it has balanced. So the errors which are not detected in the trial balance, because the trial balance will not tell you whether there's something wrong, those errors, they include A, it is the error of omission. The error of omission. And this occurs when the transaction is completely omitted. When the transaction is completely omitted from books. The error of omission, it occurs when the transaction is completely omitted from the books. When you are dealing with the ledger accounts, we normally have quite a number of transactions. On 1st of January, maybe started business with 250,000 cash. On 2nd, he bought goods. On 3rd, he sold goods. On 4th, he deposited money in the bank. So you find that one of those transactions is not recorded anywhere. No account was debited, no account was credited. That one becomes the error of omission. And that error of omission will not affect your trial balance totals. Why? The trial balance will still balance, but it will balance less that amount in that transaction. Because the figure, if for example we sold goods in cash, 50,000, and this transaction is completely omitted, what does that mean? It simply means that we did not debit cash, we did not credit sales. So the 50,000 was never debited, the 50,000 was never credited. So it is affecting both the debit and the credit side equally, and therefore the trial balance will still balance, but it will balance with 50,000 less on each side. If it was supposed to be 200,000, you find that it is balancing at 150,000 on debit, 150,000 on the credit, because of that error of omission. 50,000 was never debited, 50,000 was never credited. So the balances will balance, or the trial balance will balance less that amount, but at the end of the day, the trial balance totals will be the same. Error of omission. So when you are correcting this error, I want us to be doing it simultaneously. When that error is corrected, like here, I've talked about that, you are going to come here and do what we call the general journal. This is where errors are corrected. And the general journal will look like this. You will have a column for the serial number. This is error number what? You will have the details. Then you have the debit. Then you have the credit. So I want us to have a discussion here with you. The first error, under the error of omission, you are told that a cash sale of 50,000 was completely omitted from the books. The question is, when you sell goods in cash, which account do you debit and which account do you credit? Cash sale of 50,000 was completely omitted from the book. So when you sell goods by cash, which account do you debit and which one do you credit?
Debit cash, you credit sales.
Yes, you debit cash, you credit sales. So that transaction was not recorded anywhere. So when you are correcting that error in the general journal, you will just come here and say that is error number 1. Cash was to be debited by 50,000. So you put the amount on the debit column, and sales was supposed to be credited. You credit sales by 50,000, and that error is corrected. As simple as that. So the error of omission will require you to understand which account was supposed to be debited or credited. Then the account which was supposed to be debited will start. The amount will be captured on the debit column. The account which was supposed to be credited will be recorded on the credit column like that. Just that. And that error is corrected. You can find that electricity of 10,000 paid by check was completely omitted from the books. Electricity of 10,000 paid by check was completely omitted from the books. Which account will you debit and which one will you credit?
Debit electricity account.
Yes, you come here and debit electricity. 10,000. Then it was paid by check, so it is going to reduce the bank balance by 10,000. You credit bank. That is sorted. So that is how we deal with the error of omission. You need simply to remember the account that was supposed to be debit. That amount, you put it on the debit corresponding to that account. The account which was supposed to be credited, you credit that account with that amount that was never recorded or was omitted. We go to the second error. The second type of error, which is not going to be detected in the trial balance, is the error of commission. This occurs when a transaction is recorded in the wrong personal account, but of the same class. When a transaction is recorded in the wrong personal account, but of the same class, normally deals with the debtors and the creditors. You record a transaction in the wrong debtor or the wrong creditor. So it's known as the error of commission. If, for example, I have bought goods from who? I've bought goods from Rusi on credit. I make a mistake and record that transaction in the account of Rusia. That one will be an error of commission. I have bought goods or I've sold goods to Joan, but when recording, I put it in the account of John. That is the error of commission. You post an entry in the wrong person, but that wrong person is of the same class. Either both of them are debtors or both of them are creditors. You will have committed an error of commission. Like, for example, goods sold to John for 5,000 was recorded in Joanne's account. You are given an error like that. So you need to remember now, if goods are sold to John, we were supposed to debit John and not Joan. But remember, the record is in the account of John instead of the account of John. And when you sell goods, the customer who bought those goods becomes your debtor. We normally debit the account of the buyer. So we debited the wrong person. So how are you going to deal with that? So when it comes to error, when an entry is in the wrong account, you need to do what we call, you reverse that. You reverse that wrong entry. So this account of Joan was wrongly debited because a customer is normally debited when goods are sold to him. So we debited Joan instead of John. So what do you do to correct that error? One, we shall come here and say number 3, the account which was supposed to be debited is the account of John by 5,000. But by mistake, we debited the account of John. So what do we do with Joan? As we are speaking right now, the account of Joan has been debited by this 5,000, which is not supposed to be in this account. So we need to do what we call a reverse. We need to remove that money from this account because this is not the correct person who was supposed to be debited by that 5,000. And how do you reverse? If the entry was wrongly debited, if it was debited in the wrong account, to reverse it now, you will come and do a credit. This account was initially debited here, was recorded in Joan, meaning that Joan was debited by mistake instead of debiting John. So because this account was debited, you will now come and credit. When you credit an account which was debited, it's like you have subtracted that money from that account. You have removed that money from that account. Remember this. A debit of 5,000 in an account, and then you credit 5,000 in the same account. It is like 5,000 minus 5,000, which is 0. So that account has nothing. You have removed this 5,000 from Joanne. Initially, she was debited. Now you have credited. When it was a debit, we did plus 5,000. Now we have credited, we have done minus 5,000. So the account of Joanne will not have any amount. It has got 0 balance. So when you have it like this is the credit, this is the debit. You had debited 5,000 for an asset that is plus 5,000. Then you come here now, you credit 5,000. You have done minus 5,000. So 5,000 minus 5,000, this account has nothing left. So when you are calculating the balance carried down, there is nothing that you are going to have in this account. So that is literally what we have done here. We don't need to show, but at the back of our mind, we need to know that Joan was debited. By mistake, we need to remove that money. If it was debited by mistake to remove the amount, now we credit. That is an error of commission. Another case can be goods bought on credit from Musa for shillings 3,000 was recorded in Musau. We bought goods from Musa, 3,000. But when we went to recording, instead of recording in the account of Musa, who is now the supplier, we have recorded in an account of Musau, who is a different supplier. Musau, yes, is a supplier, but he's not the one who supplied these goods. Again, this is an error of commission. What do? When you purchase goods, we normally debit our purchases account, we credit the supplier. That is the procedure. When it comes to double entry, we debit the purchases. When goods are coming into the business, we debit them in the purchases account. Then we credit the supplier if they have been acquired on credit. But now look here. The person who was credited, it is now the wrong person. That is what we are saying here. It is recorded in the wrong personal account. The account that was credited is the account of Musau instead of crediting Musa. So what do? Musau, because was credited by mistake, you will reverse that, you will cancel that transaction. You will now have to debit Musau by 3,000. Then you credit the correct person who is Musa. Who is Musa, 3,000. That is what you need to do. When it comes to sales, we debit the customer. So if the customer who was debited was a long one, we reverse by crediting. But when we purchase, the supplier is a liability, we normally credit the account. So if we credited Musau, then we shall have to debit him to cancel. Then now we credit the correct person who is Musa. That is an error of commission. Error of commission. C, it is the error of principal. This one occurs when a transaction is recorded in the wrong class. In the wrong class of accounts. E.g., furniture bought for 15,000 was recorded in purchases. Furniture bought for 15,000 was recorded in purchases account. You know what goes to the purchases account is only goods, stock in simple terms. When you buy stock, you debit purchases. But when you buy a fixed asset, an asset or an item that is going to be in the business for a long period of time, with no intention of selling it, we normally debit the asset that we have bought. If you buy a motor vehicle, you don't put it in purchases, you put it in the motor vehicle account. If you buy furniture, you put it in the furniture account, not purchases. If you buy a computer, put it in the computer account, not purchases. But when you buy goods, that is when you put that in the purchases account. When you buy stock, that is what goes to the purchases. So this one, furniture and stock, they are completely two different items. So when you are posting them here now, you need to remember that when you bought the furniture, furniture was supposed to be debited, but you made a mistake of debiting purchases. So what do? You will come here and tell the examiner that the account that was supposed to be debited is furniture. Therefore, we should debit furniture by 15,000. Purchases account was only debited by mistake. So we need to reverse that mistake. And furniture now, or purchases account now, will now be credited. We credit purchases to reverse this. To reverse this entry that was posted there. It was never supposed to be in the purchases. So we reverse it from purchases by crediting purchases. We debit now the correct account which was supposed to be debited, which is furniture account. Error of principle. Error of principle. Another case can be repairs on motor vehicle for 2,000 shillings was recorded in motor vehicle account. You repaired your motor vehicle and paid 2,000. But now the 2,000 that you paid for repairs, you went and recorded it in the motor vehicle account. It's not supposed to be like that. When you debit motor vehicle, it simply means that you are acquiring a new motor vehicle. When you repair your motor vehicle, the entry should go to motor vehicle repairs account, which is an expense. The entry for the repairs should go to the motor vehicle repairs account, which is an expense. When now we are told that it was entered in the motor vehicle, this is very wrong. When you debit a motor vehicle account, from accounting point of view, it is like you are buying a new motor vehicle. You are acquiring a new motor vehicle. But in this case, now you are not acquiring a new motor vehicle. It is the repair for the existing motor vehicle. So this amount should be entered in the repairs account, not motor vehicle account. So you need to come here and say, the entry, this is error number 6. The account which was supposed to be debited is repairs, 2,000. But now, we are told was recorded in motor vehicle, meaning that they debited the motor vehicle by mistake. You reverse, you cancel that by crediting now the motor vehicle. You cancel that by crediting the motor vehicle. Here it was debited. Here you credit now to reverse this wrong debit that was made there. And you take it now to the correct account, which was the repairs. Error of principle. Number 4, error number 4, it is the error of original entry. the error of original entry. This occurs when a transaction is recorded in the books with wrong amount. You record the transaction, both debiting and crediting, with the wrong amount. That's the same. The wrong amount is the same wrong amount that is used to debit or credit. The same wrong amount is what you have used to debit and credit. So, like for example, here you are told rent of shillings 8,000 paid by cash was recorded in the books as shillings 800. We paid rent of 8,000 by cash, but when it came to recording that amount in the books, means that the account that was debited and the account that was credited, we posted 800 in both of them. The account that was debited by 800 instead of 8,000. The account which was supposed to be credited was credited by 800 instead of 8,000. That error is what we call the error of original entry. The original amount used is wrong, and it will either result into overcast or undercast. Either you use the wrong amount, which is more than what was supposed to be used, or you use less amount than what was supposed to be used. Like in this case, if you use 800, you have done an undercast. You have recorded by less. So what do? When you pay rent, rent being an expense, we are supposed to debit rent. Then we have paid by cash, meaning that cash is reducing, we credit cash. But now, when debiting rent, we debited using 800. So you need to come here and get the difference. 8,000 minus 800, we used 7,200 less in each account. Rent account, we posted 800, so 7,200 was never used. Cash account, we used 800, we never credited 7,200. So here you will come here and now rectify the error. Number 7, the account which was supposed to be debited is rent, but 7,200 was never debited. So we debit that difference. And then the account which was supposed to be credited is cash, 7,200 was never credited. And that error is sorted. You use the difference. You use the difference. You use the difference. The other scenario here is, another example under this is that cash deposited to the bank of 15,000 cash deposited to the bank of 15,000 was recorded in the books as 150,000. We took cash to the bank, 15,000. But when we are recording it in our books, instead of using 15,000, we used 150,000. 150,000 was used in recording in the cash account and recording in the bank account. In this case now, you have done what we call overcast. You have used more than what was the correct or actual amount. So you need to get the difference. 150 minus 15,000. 135,000. What does that mean? Remember cash, when you take cash to bank, you are supposed to debit bank and credit cash. That is the correct position. When you are taking money from cash to bank, cash is reducing, you credit cash, bank will be receiving that money, you debit bank. But look here, the mistake that we did is that to cash, we credited 150,000, which is 135 more than what was supposed to be credited. To bank, we debited 150,000 instead of this 15, so we debited by 135,000 extra. So what do? You will come now and rectify the error by subtracting or reversing the extra amount that was made there. We reverse not the whole transaction. We reverse only the overcasted amount. So I'll come here and say this is number 8. My bank account was debited by 150 instead of 15. So I debited 135,000 more. My cash, which was supposed to be credited by 15, was credited by 150, which is 135,000 more. This account that I credited with more, I'm going to reverse only the excess amount. Cash was credited by 150,000. So I need to reverse this extra amount that was credited here. I'll come therefore and say for cash, because I overcredited, I will reverse the 135. I will reverse only the 135,000. It was credited, now I debit the 135,000. So 150,000 was credited. Now I debit 135,000. I will be only leaving behind the 15,000 which was supposed to be credited there. Then I come here to the bank. My bank account was debited, yes, but debited with 135,000 extra. So I'll now reverse only the 135. I will only reverse only the 135,000. You only reverse the extra or the excess amount that was used there. This is an overcast. The other one that we did here, it was undercast. Undercast is like you are adding what was never recorded. But overcast, you reverse or you subtract the extra amount that was recorded in that account. Then error number E, number 5, it is an error we call the error of complete reversal. E, the error of complete reversal of entries. Error of complete reversal of entries. This error of complete reversal of entries is when you do the opposite. The account which you are supposed to debit, you find that you have credited. And the account which you are supposed to credit, you find that you have debited. You do the opposite in simple terms. You reverse the entries. Instead of maybe debiting cash, you credit cash. Instead of crediting bank, you debit bank. Like for example, cash sales of 2,500 was debited in sales and credited in cash. That is an error that you have done. You did sell goods by cash. You need to know that when you sell goods by cash, you should debit cash. And the rule is that sales is always credited. Sales is always credited. You credit sales, you debit the cash because cash will be coming into the business. But if you look at what happened here, the sales which is always credited, they debited it. And the cash which was supposed to be debited, it was credited. So they have done the opposite. This is an error of complete reversal of entries. How do you correct it? Very simple. Very simple. To correct it, note this. Let me put it down so that it can understood, because it is an issue that confuses students. Here I have my cash. Here I have my sales account. These are my reg accounts. So what we know is that the cash was supposed to be debited, but we are told was credited in cash. So credited cash means 2,500 was recorded on the credit. Debited in sales means that in sales account, the 2,500 was posted on the debit. Like that. So we are told now to correct this error. You know, cash was supposed to be debited. If we now debit 2,500, what we have only done is we have reversed this. 2,500 minus 2,500 is 0. If we only credit sales by 2,500, what we shall have done is only reversing. So the error of complete reversal will require that we record the amount now on the correct side, but we double the amount. So we shall use here 2,500 and another 2,500. Here it is 2,500, we reverse 2,500 and another 2,500. Why are we using double the amount? Because we are reversing and then recording. This amount is on the wrong side. We need to reverse it. But as we reverse it, we also need to record the 2,500, which was supposed to be debited in cash. Sales was supposed to be credited, but we debited. So what do? We reverse this so that we can cancel. This one is only for canceling this. Then this one is for recording. We cancel, then we record. So we shall be using double the amount. So you'll find that when we are correcting this, you shall write here, this is error number 9, whereby cash has been debited by 5,000, sales has been credited by 5,000. That is how the correction would be. Error of reversal, whether it is complete or partial reversal, the correction must involve doubling of the amount, because you need to reverse and then record. So reversing and recording, you'll find that the amount has been used twice, and that is why we double the amount. Then the other two, I just mentioned them. Apart from the first 5 that we have discussed, the error of omission, commission, principal, original entry, and complete reversal, we also have the compensating errors. These are errors that cancel the effects of each other. The errors that cancel the effect of each other. The error that cancel the effect of each other. You make an error, number 1, it has a negative or it has an effect on the debit. On another date, you make another error, which now counters the first error that you had made. So they cancel the effect of each other. If the debit side was recorded by less 1,000, you make another error whereby the debit is now recorded by more by 1,000. The 1,000 that was less plus this 1,000 that we have put there, which is more, it cancels out and the trial balance will still balance. Lastly is the transposition. This is when wrong sequence of digits is used in an amount. You use that. Actually, it is a special error of original entry. They have the same kind of effect. Instead of using 939, you use 993. Yeah? Instead of 846, You find yourself you used 864, eh? The wrong sequence of digits in an amount. But this wrong sequence of digits is what you use to debit and credit. So they will also result into overcast and undercast. Those are the errors, number one, which do not affect the trial balance totals. They do not affect the trial balance totals. Once you have understood them, then it is good. After that, we can now go to the errors number two. Errors number two, these are the errors which are detected in the trial balance. They are also the ones that affect trial balance totals. They affect the trial balance totals, meaning that once this error has been made, the totals of the trial balance will not be equal. You will find that your trial balance, the BR and the CR, the totals down there, they will not be the same. Here maybe it is 105,000. Here you get is 100,000. So the totals of the trial balance will not agree because of these errors. And these errors, you will find that they affect only one side. Either they affect the debit only or the credit only. And write the errors that we have done here, whereby the effect is on both sides. The effect is felt equally on debit and credit. These ones, you'll find that either the debit only is affected or the credit only is affected. So the one side of the trial balance will actually outweigh the other. So these errors, they include, one is what we call single entry. The ledger accounts, they are supposed to be prepared on the basis of double entry. But when you do a single entry, means that you debit and then you forget to credit. Or you credit, then you forget to debit. You will have done single entry and it will affect your trial balance, because if you have forgotten to debit, then it means that that amount will be missing on the debit. If you have forgotten to credit, that amount will be missing on the credit. Single entry. Your trial balance will not balance unless there is a compensating error. Number two, it is what we call use of different amounts. The use of different amounts. The amount that you use to debit is not the same amount that you use to credit. It is not like the original entry and the transposition error, whereby the same wrong amount is debited and credited in the accounts. But this one, you debit by 10,000, you credit by 100,000. The trial balance will not balance. The trial balance will not balance. Number three is what we call the partial reversal of entries. The partial reversal of entries. Instead of complete reversal, you do partial reversal of entries. Means that you either do 2 debits or 2 credits. You know the rule of double entry states that for every debit, there must be a corresponding credit. You debit and then you also credit using the same amount. That is the policy. But when you do partial reversal, it is a case where you'll find yourself having debited both accounts or credited both of them. Instead of doing debit and credit, you do debit, credit. That is partial reversal of entries. Then number 4 is what we call arithmetic errors. The arithmetic errors. The errors to do with addition and subtraction. When balancing your ledger accounts, you are totaling the total of the debit or the totals of the credit and then you get the balance, you do a wrong addition or a wrong subtraction, that is arithmetic error. You will get a wrong balance. When that wrong balance is taken to the trial balance, your trial balance will not agree. Your trial balance will not agree. These ones. So when these errors occur, the difference, obviously the trial balance will not balance. Like in this case, we had said you have your debit and credit totals. Your debit is balancing or totaling 100,000. Your credit is balancing with 105,000. There's a difference because of these errors. When these occur, you need to transfer the difference into an account we call suspense account. A suspense account is a simple T account. That's why we call it the accounting errors and the suspense account. The suspense account, you'll come here and ask yourself, 100, 105,000. So this side is having less. The side where we have got less total, that is where we put the difference. This and this, the difference is 5,000. So we shall put the 5,000. The credit is exceeding the debit with 5,000. So the figure or the amount in the suspense account will be captured on the debit side. We put it on the debit side, the side with less in the trial balance. Then you will correct your errors. And when you are correcting your errors, look at what we have on the board. In the errors number 1, those which do not affect the trial balance, we don't mention anywhere suspense account here because they did not affect the trial balance totals. But now these errors, because they are affecting the one side, so you find that we are either going to debit suspense or credit suspense. As we correct, because this is an issue on one account, we shall correct the error in that one account. Then, because the general journal is prepared by debiting and crediting, debiting, crediting, so as we correct the error, either the error will be corrected by debiting that account, then we shall now use suspense account to credit it. If the error is corrected by crediting it, the account that is affected, then the suspense account will be debited to complete the double entry, debit, credit. There must be debit, credit always in the general journal or when you are passing the journal entries. So errors number 1, which do not affect the trial balance, they don't require suspense. But these errors, to correct them, we shall involve suspense. And the moment all the errors have been corrected, our suspense account will duly balance. Our suspense account will duly balance, meaning that after correcting all those errors, the totals of the debit and credit of the suspense account will be equal without introducing balance carried down. They will just self-balance. So, having said that, I want us now to look at the questions that I shared with you. On your wall, there is some questions that I shared with you, which is on accounting errors. Question number 1 says that identify the type of error made in these transactions. Purchase of machinery 94,000 was debited in the purchases account. I told you that one is an error of principle. When you record a transaction in the wrong class. Payment of cash 65,000 to Baraka, a creditor, was originally entered in the books as 56,000. This is an error of original entry. You can as well call it the transposition error. We used the wrong sequence of digits or original entry because the original amount is wrong. Sale of goods on credit 24,000 to Liza Watano was debited to Liza Watoro. This is an error of commission, the wrong person. The account of J. Mapato, a creditor, is overcast by 8,000. At the same time, the account of Mapema, a debtor, was overcast by 8,000. These are known as compensating errors. We overcast the credit. At the same time, we overcast the debit. Because a creditor is normally credited, we recorded 8,000 more on the credit of the creditor. Then at a later date, we come and now overcast the debit by the same amount. So the excess amount that is on the credit is the same excess amount that is on the debit. They cancel out, they compensate each other. Those errors are known as compensating errors. Number 5, payment of cash 2,600 to T. Juma was debited in cash and credited in to Juma. When you pay by cash, we normally credit cash. But the person who is being paid is normally debited, but we did the opposite. Instead of crediting cash, we debited the cash. Instead of debiting T. Juma, we credited T. Juma. We have done what we call error of complete reversal of entries. Error of complete reversal of entries. That is all about that. You just mention, and actually by mentioning, you get 2 marks. That was, the examiner was very generous with the marks. Just mentioning the error, you get 2 marks. 5 times 2, you get 10 marks. Okay, that is it. Question number 2. On the 31st of December 2022, the trial balance of Macomi Traders balanced. However, the following errors were revealed, meaning that these are errors which do not affect the trial balance. If the trial balance balanced, the errors that we are talking about here are errors not affecting the trial balance. If they were affecting, the trial balance could not have balanced. If it balanced, then with these errors, then those errors are the errors which do not affect the trial balance totals. But you are told you correct those errors by passing journal entries. When you are told you do journal entries, just come and prepare a very good general journal. Prepare a very good general journal. What we have been using is what we call the general journal. Capture the serial number of the error, that is error number what, which account is going to be debited and credited, that is what we record on the details, the debit amount, the credit amount. This is our general journal. Label it like that. This is our general journal. So the error number 1 says, just a minute. The first error says that a cash sale of 1,400 was totally omitted. When it is totally omitted, it was never debited or credited anywhere. And I told you, the error of omission is simply corrected by recording the entries the way they were supposed to be recorded. What the account that was supposed to be debited, you debit. The account that was supposed to be credited, you credit. So here you sold the goods in cash, meaning that error number 1, cash came in. We were supposed to debit cash by 1,400. We sold the goods. When goods are sold, the policy is you credit sales. So the sales account was supposed to be credited by 1,400. Just that. Get a mark here, get a mark there. Number 2. Number 1. Number 2.
And Mulimu, I'm having a question, sorry. Where does the suspense account come in place? Because I'm just trying to reflect on how you've been doing it. I think must have been on Sunday, and there's an area where we recorded the suspense, then the cash. I don't know. Or is this case different?
Okay. If you have been following what I've been doing from the word go, when I started this lesson, I said we have got two types of errors. We have got those errors which do not affect the trial balance, and we have listed them here. We started with the error of omission, error of commission, error of principal, compensating errors, complete reverse of entries. Those errors, because they do not affect the totals of the trial balance, it simply means that they don't require suspense. The errors of omission, commission, principal, and so on and so forth, those errors, they don't require suspense account. And they don't require suspense account because they affect the debit and the credit equally. So as you correct them, you will have an account to debit, you will have another account to credit, so you don't need suspense. Suspense only comes in when we are handling errors affecting the trial balance. In that case, you'll find that an account is only affected on one side. The error only affected the debit of an account or the credit of an account. So as we correct that error in that account, we now bring in suspense account to complete the debiting and credit. So errors which do not affect the totals of the trial balance, they don't require suspense. And actually, when I was reading this question, I started by mentioning that. I started by mentioning that because the way the question read, on the 31st of December 2022, the trial balance of Makumi Traders balanced. That is very powerful. It balanced. Therefore, these errors that are listed down here, all of them, they don't affect the trial balance. If they could have affected, the trial balance could not have balanced. So none of these errors will require suspense because they are errors which do not affect the trial balance totals. So we don't use suspense here. You will find that as we correct those errors, we shall having an account to debit and credit, so we don't require suspense. Suspense we only bring in because only one account is affected. So we correct the error there, then we shall be missing the other account either to debit or credit. We bring suspense in that case. I hope I am clear now.
Clear enough, thanks, Mwalimu.
Yes. So the error number one is an error of omission. So the account which was supposed to be debited, you debit. The account which was supposed to be credited, you credit. You correct that omission. You correct that omission. We go to number two. Credit purchase of goods from Mary of 18,000 was credited to Maria. And here I told you, when you purchase something on credit, the supplier is a creditor. The person who is selling goods to you, it is a liability to you because you will be owing that person. And those people, the suppliers, are normally credited when acquiring goods from them. So, but in this case, we acquired goods from Mary, meaning that it is Mary who was supposed to be credited, but we found ourselves crediting a wrong supplier by the name Maria. We credited Mary. That is the starting point. Remember, for you to be able to correct the errors, the knowledge of the ledger accounts must be at your fingertips. So that as you read the statement, first of all, register in your mind who was supposed to be debited or how are we supposed to treat this transaction. We acquired goods on credit from Mary, meaning that it is Mary who was supposed to be credited, but we credited Maria. Now this is what you do. Maria, because she was wrongly credited, you reverse that entry from her account. She was credited. Now you will come here and debit her. You will debit her by the 18,000 to reverse, to cancel, to deduct that amount that was credited in Maria. Maria will be debited. What are we going to do with Mary? Mary is the correct supplier who was supposed to be credited. You reverse the wrong credit by debiting that wrong account, which was initially credited. Then now you credit the correct supplier who happens to be Mary. You sort it out like that. You reverse the wrong one, you record the correct way. Number three, we are told motor vehicle repair expenses amounting to 23,000 was debited in motor vehicle account. We did a similar entry. When you repair the motor vehicle, never make a mistake of debiting motor vehicle. When you debit motor vehicle, it simply means that you are acquiring a new motor vehicle. But in this case, we are not acquiring a new motor vehicle. It is an existing motor vehicle that we are repairing, meaning that we are incurring an expense in the name of repairs. What are we going to do therefore here? Was debited in motor vehicle account, so it was debited in the wrong account. So we shall reverse that. We shall reverse it from motor vehicle, and then we debit the correct account, which is repairs of 23,000. Motor vehicle, because was debited, we shall credit. It was debited, but it was debited by mistake. We credit to reverse or to minus that amount. Then we debit the correct account, which is repairs. Class 3, number 4. A payment of 5,000 by check to Juma was recorded in the books as 500. That is error of original entry. The original amount used is wrong. Look here. I have said it when we were dealing with this error number 2, that when you buy goods on credit, the supply is normally credited, which is correct. But when now paying that supplier, when it will get to a date or the point of paying the supplier which was credited, when payment is made to him or her, now the account will be debited. Yeah? Because you are subtracting what you had credited there. You had credited maybe 50,000. You have paid 30,000. You cannot credit again when you are paying. Yeah? You credit when you are acquiring the goods on credit. But when making the payments, you are minusing what you had credited. You debit the account of that particular supplier. So anytime you are making a payment to anybody, the person you are paying should be debited. Then you should be crediting either cash or bank, depending on what you are using to make the payment. But here now, we have paid Juma 500, and we were told that the payment was made by check, meaning we should credit bank because we have spent money in the bank to pay Juma. Juma, we debit him, bank, we credit. We did that. The only error that we made is that we used 500 instead of 5,000. So you will now come here and calculate the difference. From 5,000, we used only 500, meaning that we recorded in those books 500 for 500 less. So as we were debiting Juma, we debited 500. 4,500 was never debited. So you use the difference. You will say that Juma, because we only debited 500, we shall now debit 4,500, so that 500 plus 4,500 equal 5,000. We paid by bank, and our bank account, we only credited 500. We shall now credit the 4,500 difference to make that total 5,000. To make the totals 5,000. And that is how that question was supposed to be handled. That is how the question was supposed to be handled. So good enough. I want us to look at the question number 3. I want us to look at question number 3 together here. All this did not require suspense because there are errors which do not affect the trial balance. I therefore want us to do question number 3 which now will involve suspense. Okay. Question number 3, it is there about the trial balance of what Timo traders did not balance. The difference of 39,092 was placed on the credit side of suspense account. So when you are told it did not balance, obviously now we have some errors which affected the trial balance, and those errors will require we use suspense account. On comparison, the following errors were revealed. These are the errors whereby now you will be told to do suspense account, because those errors will require the suspense account in the process of doing the corrections. Well, I want us first of all to start with the journal entries, that is preparing the general journal. From the general journal, it is very easy and very fast to do the suspense. With the general journal, it is just a matter of lifting and taking it to the suspense, where suspense account has been affected or involved. So let us look at them. The general journal, that is what we use to do the journal entries. So in that question number 3, error number 1 says that a cash sale of 35,328 was recorded as 35,238 in the sales account. You see now, that is a very different story. It says where the error is, the specific account that has that error. You are told it is in the sales account, meaning that that amount, which is the wrong amount, was only used in the sales account. It is only the sales account that was recorded with the wrong amount. It is very different when the question talks about, was recorded as this in the books. When it is saying in the books, it simply means both of them are affected. But when it is recorded, it says that in the, like in this case, sales account, it is only the sales account with an issue. Even if it was cash sale, cash has no problem here. It was recorded with the correct amount. But in the sales account, that is where we used the different and wrong amount. So get to know when it is talking about in the books. In the books simply means both of them, and that one now becomes an error of original entry because both of them are affected. But when it is going to pinpoint a specific account, then it simply means that it is an error that is only affecting one account, and then you find that we used different amounts, and that is why the trial balance did not balance, or one of the reasons. So I want you to get the difference for me. The amount was 35,328, but was recorded as 35,238. What is the difference? $35,238 minus 35,328.
90.
90. As we talk about that 90 again, now you need to also ask yourself, did we use 90 more or 90 less? When recording in the sales account, 35,238, did we use more or less?
Less.
We used less.
We used less. In the sales account, that is where the problem is. In the sales account, 90 shillings is less. So what are we going to do? We need to top up the 90. Sales account by rule and by practice is always credited. So we forgot to credit 90 shillings in the sales account. So sales account, because it's always credited, we did not credit the 90, we shall credit that 90 there. Do we have an account where we shall do the debit entry? We don't have. Now that we don't have, that is when we bring in suspense. We shall debit suspense by 90, but that is not our focus. Our focus is in the sales. The sales has 90 less. We correct by crediting sales. Now that we don't have the other account to debit, that is when we involve suspense of 90. Suspense is a swing account. It can be debited, it can be credited, but you focus on the error. The error is that sales was missing 90 shillings, which now we have credited. We now bring in suspense just to make sure that we observe the rule. For every amount credited, there must be an account to be debited. And now in this case, because cash account has no issue here, it is not affected by this error. The error says that it was recorded as this in the sales account. So we correct the error in the sales by crediting sales by 90, debit the suspense by 90, and our issue is sorted. Number 2. Error number 2, question number 3. The purchases account had been overcast by that 24,000. The purchases account has been or had been overcast by 24,000. Now here you need also to bring the knowledge of the ledger accounts. On which side do we record the purchases? Purchases account is always done what when we are buying goods? Debited or credited?
Debited.
Yes, Joyce, you are very right. Purchases account, every time we bring in goods, we debit purchases. That is correct. But now look at the scenario that is at hand. It has been overcasted. Overcast means you recorded excess or extra amount. So as we are speaking, 24,000 in the purchases account is excess. And it is excess on the debit because purchases is normally debited. So how do we remove that excess from the debit? We reverse that excess amount. Because purchases is debited, to reverse that, we shall require a credit entry. We shall credit our purchases by 24,000 to remove it because it's an overcast. Then again here, we don't have an account to debit. 24,000 will be debited in suspense to complete double entry. Does that? It requires some reminders. Just look at that account, make a flashback. We normally debit it or credit it. If it is an overcast, you need it to reverse. If it is normally debited to reverse, you have to credit that account. But if it was an undercast and the account is normally debited, you debit again. Undercast means that that amount is missing. If the account is debited, that amount is missing on the same debit. Number 3. Number 3, we are told that discount received, you pause there. If you receive discount, discount belongs to the group of revenues. Revenues are normally credited. So when you receive discount, you normally credit the discount received account. Discount received that. But let us finish the question. The discount that we received was 41,000. It had been wrongly debited in the discount received account. Are you getting that point? We received the discount. Instead of crediting our discount received account, we did a mistake, we did an error, and that error, we debited the discount received. That is what we call the partial reversal. One account only has been affected by that. Our DR, discount received, it was supposed to be credited by 41, but that 41 has been debited here. How do we take it to the credit? I told you, and I repeat, when an amount is in the correct account, but on the wrong side, you take it to the correct side now, which is credit. 41,000 will be used first of all to cancel, then 41,000 will be used again to record. So we normally take it to the correct side, but we double the amount. Why are we doubling? Because we are first of all reversing this wrong entry, then recording. So you'll find that our discount received will be credited by 82,000. Then again now, our suspense account, which is now an account that moves anyway, is going to be debited by the same amount that you have credited. That is how you make an argument. That is how you build your case. Discount received was debited. Why? That is wrong. First of all, can we reverse that? We reverse by 41. But again, we need to record that. We don't need just to reverse. We reverse, then record. We use 41,000 twice. 41 times 2 is 82,000. Number four, we are told that a credit sale of 121,200 had been recorded as 112,200 in the debtor's account. You see again how that one is ending. It is pinpointing the specific account with error. The debtor's account has been recorded as 112,200 in the debtor's account. So we don't involve sales here. Sales account has no issue. We sold the goods. And the goods that we sold, they were worth 121,200. But when recording, 112,200 is the figure we used in the debtors. It does not tell us in the books. It tells us in the debtor. So let us concentrate with the debtor's account and correct that error in the debtor's account. I have said here, and it is like now a song, sales account is always credited. When you sell on credit, you debit the debtor. The debtor is the customer who bought the goods. And as we were debiting this debtor, we debited with 112,200 instead of 121,200. Can you give me the difference?
9,000.
9,000, correct. Now ask yourself, did we debit 9,000 more or 9,000 less?
9,000 less.
9,000 less. And the debtor is normally debited at the point of sale. When you sell, you normally debit the debtor, but we debited this debtor with 9,000 less. So what are we doing here? To correct that mess, the debtor, because 9,000 is missing on the debit of that debtor, I will come here and add the 9,000. It is missing on the debit, so I debit the 9,000 on the debtor to make it 121,200. Then now here again, my suspense account, which is now the savior for completing the entry, will go to the credit 9,000. And the issues will be sorted. Number 5. Our number 5 says, a bill of 17,000 paid for electricity was not recorded in the electricity account. You see how it is ending, was not recorded, not in the books. It was only not recorded in electricity. So when you pay electricity, electricity belongs to the expenses which are always credited. So in simple terms, we forgot to debit electricity. We only credited cash or bank. We forgot to debit electricity. All expenses are normally debited. So electricity was supposed to be debited by 17,000. Then now again here we shall credit our suspense by 17,000. Number 6, discount allowed account had been understated by 11,000. Discount allowed. Discount allowed also belongs to the expenses. And I've said this, all expenses, they are normally debited. So the discount allowed account has been understated. And we said understatement means we recorded by less. We debited in this case because expenses are debited. We debited discount allowed with 11,000 less. Because it is less, that amount is missing on the discount. That amount is missing on the discount allowed account, which should be debited. So we debit the undercast, which is now the missing amount. Then we shall credit our suspense by 11,000. That is number 6. Number 7. The bank was understated. Bank is an asset. Assets, they have a debit balance or they are normally debited. So if it is understated by 20,000, then it simply means that on the debit side of bank, 20,000 is missing. So we debit, we credit our suspense by the 20,000. Bank, if it is understated, being an asset, meaning that the debit is lacking or missing 20,000. We put it on the debit, then suspense account completes that. Number 8, a payment of 5,000 to a supplier had been credited to the supplier's account. I think I've talked about the same. When you are paying a supplier, when you are paying anybody, when you are paying a supplier, when paying a supplier, the supplier should be debited. The only point where we credit the supplier, it is when we are purchasing from their same supplier. When the supplier is supplying goods to us, that is when we credit. But when we are now making a payment, the supplier account should be debited. But if you read this statement, it says that we paid the supplier, but the supplier was debited. But the supplier, sorry, was credited. You cannot pay the supplier and credit the supplier. Crediting the supplier means that the amount that you owe the supplier is increasing. But here you are paying, meaning that you are reducing what you are owing that supplier. When you are reducing a liability, we normally debit. So that is now going to give us a scenario whereby our supplier account is here. Instead of making a payment and debiting 5,000, the 5,000 was credited there. How do you bring it here? We find ourselves in the same scenario. An account which was supposed to be debited has been credited. So the first 5,000 is to reverse that. Then you now again record the 5,000. So we shall debit the supplier by a total of 10,000. Then the suspense will now be credited by the 10,000. That is how those errors were supposed to be sorted out. And the moment you sort them out like that, then everything becomes perfect. You have corrected all of them in a very orderly manner. So you'll agree with me again. The concept of ledger accounts is key here. The concept of ledger accounts is key here, so that you can always be remembering how do you record a transaction in a particular ledger account. That one is the basis. Then you look at the error and then understand how you are going to sort that error. After doing that, we are told now we should do a suspense account, which is a simple one. Actually, I normally advise my students, if you are told to prepare only the suspense account without this, just go an extra mile and do this one and then come to this. Even if this one was not asked, do it. It becomes very fast to do the suspense account when you have done the journal entries. So, we read the question how it was. From the beginning there. On the 31st of December 2017, the trial balance of Watimo traders did not balance. The difference of 39,090 was placed on the credit side of suspense account. So this difference, which I told you is normally put on the side with less amount in the trial balance, but in this case, we have been specifically been guided on where to place it. We are told to place it on the credit side. So sometimes they can tell you that the debit exceeded the credit. So you put it on the side with less when comparing the trial balance totals. But here we have been told this, that 9090, we place it on the credit side of the suspense account. So the credit side of suspense account is that side. You capture it as balance brought down, 39. This is 39,090. We have been told to place it on the credit side of the suspense. So that is the credit side. Then go to your errors. Anywhere suspense account has been touched, that amount you transfer to this suspense account. Like error number 1, you look that and find that suspense account, the 90,000 was debited. In the suspense account, we debited 90 shillings. So this is the debit side. Put that 90. Record using the name of the other account that was affected by that error. That error was affecting sales. So you write here sales. But the amount, remember, is on the debit of suspense. Suspense is debited, so you debit. Then here you capture the name of the account that was having the error. Number 2, suspense account is debited again here with 24,000. So you debit 24,000. The name of the account with the error was purchases. Number 3, suspense account is debited by 82,000. You debit 82,000. The account with the error was discount. The account with the error was discount received. So let me just write here discount. Abbreviate it as discount received. Discount received, 82,000. Number 4, suspense account. Look at the suspense account. The 9,000 is on the credit. So I'll credit my suspense account. The name of the account with the error is the debtor. I'll come here. Suspense account, 17,000 is credited. Here. 17,000. We come here, number 6, suspense account is having a credit of 11,000. What was the account with error? Discount allowed. Discount allowed, DA. Number 7, suspense account here is having a credit of 20,000. The name of the account with error was bank. So I use here bank. Lastly here, suspense account credited by 10,000. The account that had error is the account of the supplier. If all errors have been corrected, they have been identified and corrected, then our suspense account should balance. The totals on both the debit and credit should be equal. $106,090. On both sides. And when it balances like that, this is a suspense account that is duly balanced, meaning that all errors were well identified and all those errors have been correctly been rectified. And that is why the suspense account is self-balancing. That is the match that I can give when it comes to errors. That is the match that I can give when it comes to errors. I want to send you, sorry. I want to give you some tasks now to do. Sorry. Sorry for that. I'm supposed to share something different here.